July 10, 1940, 11:47 a.m., Dover, England. The White Cliffs. Adolf Hitler stood on a temporary observation platform, binoculars pressed to his eyes. Behind him, German officers shifted uncomfortably in the summer heat. Before him, across 34 kilometers of gray water, lay the White Cliffs of Dover. Britain, the last obstacle in Western Europe. Through the lenses, he could see movement. Tiny figures, British soldiers fortifying positions, anti-aircraft batteries being positioned along the coast. So close. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel cleared his throat. Mein Führer, the Luftwaffe reports full readiness for Phase 1. We can begin operations within the hour. Hitler lowered the binoculars slowly. Soon, he said quietly, very soon, that island will be ours. What happened next changed the course of history. But what if it hadn't? Here's the question that still haunts historians today. What if Hitler had made just one different decision in the summer of 1940? What if Britain, the last standing democracy in Western Europe, had fallen? Would the world we live in today even exist? Let me know what you think in the comments. Because this isn't just a story about battles and invasions. It's about how fragile history really is. How a single mistake, or a single success, can reshape the fate of entire continents. And how close we came to a world unimaginably darker than the one we inherited. September 1939. The Lightning War begins. To understand what could have happened, we first need to understand what did happen. September 1939. Nazi Germany unleashed its military machine on Poland. The world had never seen anything like it. Panzer tanks rolled across the Polish countryside in coordinated columns. Dive bombers, Stukas, screamed out of the sky, their sirens designed to terrorize. Mobile infantry units moved with ruthless efficiency. It was blitzkrieg, lightning war. The town of Wuk was one of the first to experience the horror. German bombs didn't just target military installations. They hit schools, hospitals, residential neighborhoods. Polish pilot B.J. Solak wrote in his diary, "The stench of burning and a brown veil of smoke filled all the air around our town." Children were caught in the crossfire on their way to school. Entire families perished in their homes. The Luftwaffe rained hellfire. Trains were derailed. Cities burned. Poland fought with extraordinary courage, but it stood no chance. On September 3rd, Britain and France declared war on Germany. But declarations mean nothing without action, and for months, there was almost none. Spring 1940, the unstoppable machine. By spring 1940, the German war machine seemed invincible. Denmark fell in hours, Norway in weeks, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, all conquered in rapid succession. And then came France. The nation with one of the most powerful armies in the world, defeated in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. The speed was staggering, tactics revolutionary. German forces used methamphetamine, Pervitin, to keep soldiers awake for days. Tank crews drove non-stop. Infantry units marched without rest. It was warfare at a pace the world had never imagined. And with Norway conquered, Germany now had access to heavy water, a critical component for atomic research. The implications were terrifying. When France fell, something unexpected happened. Much of the French population accepted the new Vichy government, a regime sympathetic to Nazi ideology. Anti-Semitism was not uncommon in France. Hitler's rhetoric found willing listeners. This is crucial to remember. Fascism didn't just conquer through force. It seduced through propaganda, through promises, through exploiting fear and resentment. Dunkirk, the miracle that saved Britain. By late May 1940, the British Expeditionary Force was trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk. Surrounded, outnumbered, outgunned. It should have been a massacre, but through a combination of luck, determination, and Hitler's inexplicable decision to halt his tanks, over 330,000 Allied troops were evacuated across the English Channel. It was called the Miracle of Dunkirk, but it was a miracle born of desperation. Britain had survived, barely. But the war was far from over, and the next battle would determine whether Britain would survive at all. June 18, 1940. Churchill's warning. Winston Churchill stood before the House of Commons. The chamber was packed, the air thick with tension. His voice, that unmistakable growl, filled the room. "I expect that the Battle of Britain is about to begin. Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. Upon it depends our own British life." He paused. Let the weight of his words settle. "Hitler knows that he will have to break us in this island or lose the war. If we fail, then the whole world, including the United States, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age." He was right, and he knew it. Churchill understood something many didn't. Hitler would not stop. Not with Britain, not with Europe. Eventually he would come for America too. That's why Churchill refused to negotiate, refused to settle. Because settling with Hitler meant surrendering not just territory, but the future itself. Summer 1940. The Battle of Britain. The battle began in July. In the skies above southern England, British Hawker Hurricanes and Supermarine Spitfires clashed with German Messerschmitt Bf 109s. Dogfights raged at 20,000 feet. Young pilots, most barely in their 20s, fought and died in machines traveling hundreds of miles per hour. One Spitfire pilot described a typical engagement. "We were both flying in a tight circle, just a little more and I'll have him. Pressing the trigger, I waited expectantly for the 109 to explode. I've hit his wing." He was one of the lucky ones. Life expectancy for an RAF pilot during the Battle of Britain was measured in weeks. Chapter 60% of operational airmen were either lost, wounded, or captured. Around 51% of all RAF aircrew perished during the war. On the ground, German Junkers bombers targeted airfields, radar stations, and eventually cities. The Blitz had begun. Air raid sirens became a daily reality. Londoners spent nights huddled in underground stations, listening to bombs fall above. One woman wrote in her diary, "I wonder what the pilots feel. After all, somebody loves them, even if they're Nazis." Hitler's fatal mistake. And then Hitler made a critical error. In May 1941, he withdrew significant numbers of aircraft from the Battle of Britain. Why? To prepare for Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. It was a catastrophic strategic blunder. The Luftwaffe had been winning. RAF Fighter Command was exhausted. Airfields were being destroyed faster than they could be repaired. Just a few more weeks of sustained pressure and Britain's air defenses might have collapsed. But Hitler's ideological obsession with destroying Judeo-Bolshevism overrode military logic. He pulled back from Britain, planning to return later after the Soviet Union was crushed. That decision saved Britain, and ultimately, it doomed Nazi Germany. Why Operation Sea Lion never happened. Even if Germany had achieved air superiority, invading Britain was nearly impossible. Operation Sea Lion, the planned amphibious invasion, faced insurmountable obstacles. 1. The Royal Navy, Britain's navy, was the most powerful in the world. The German Kriegsmarine was no match. Even if the Luftwaffe controlled the skies during the day, British destroyers and battleships could shred invasion barges at night. 2. Lack of landing craft. Germany had no specialized landing craft. Their plan involved converted river barges, slow, unstable, vulnerable. Crossing the English Channel in those would have been suicide. 3. British resolve. Unlike France, Britain was united in defiance. Churchill's leadership galvanized the nation. Civilians were prepared to fight in the streets if necessary. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt himself doubted the plan could work. He reportedly said, "Even Napoleon couldn't invade Britain," and he tried. The real outcome. By October 1940, the Battle of Britain was over. The RAF had held. Germany lost approximately 1,800 aircraft and over 2,500 aircrew. Britain lost around 1,500 aircraft and 1,542 pilots. But Britain had survived. An American journalist wrote, "Adolf Hitler met his first defeat in 8 years in what might go down in history as a battle as important as Waterloo or Gettysburg." Churchill, ever the orator, immortalized the moment. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. The message was clear. Germany was not invincible. And that message resonated across the world, especially in the United States. But what if? Now let's enter the alternate timeline. Let's imagine Hitler made different decisions. Let's imagine Germany didn't withdraw aircraft for Barbarossa. Let's imagine the Luftwaffe sustained its pressure on RAF Fighter Command for just a few more weeks. Let's imagine British air defenses collapsed. What happens next? The alternate timeline. Britain falls, August 1940. Alternate reality. RAF Fighter Command is exhausted. Airfields across southern England are craters. Radar stations are gone. German bombers fly over Britain almost unopposed. Churchill faces the unthinkable. Britain cannot hold. On September 15, 1940, in our timeline, the decisive day when the RAF turned the tide, in this alternate world, the RAF ceases to exist as an effective fighting force. Hitler gives the order, launch Operation Sea Lion. The invasion, September 20, 1940. Under cover of darkness, German barges cross the English Channel. British destroyers attempt to intercept, but the Luftwaffe, now dominant in the skies, pounds them relentlessly. Some barges are sunk, but many make it through. German troops land on the beaches of Kent and Sussex. The invasion has begun. British Home Guard units, armed with rifles, shotguns, and improvised weapons, fight desperately. But they are no match for battle-hardened Wehrmacht soldiers. Within days, German forces have secured beachheads and are pushing inland. The fall of London. October 1940. German panzer divisions roll through the English countryside. The British Army fights valiantly, but it's outnumbered and outgunned. By late October, German forces are on the outskirts of London. Churchill faces an impossible choice. On November 3, 1940, he makes the most painful decision of his life. He orders the government to evacuate to Canada. "We will never surrender," he vows. "Britain will fight on, from across the Atlantic if necessary." But privately, he knows the truth. Britain has fallen. The Collaborators. With Churchill gone and the government in exile, a power vacuum emerges. The Germans install a puppet regime. Oswald Mosley, leader of the British Union of Fascists, becomes Prime Minister. Former King Edward VIII, who had abdicated in 1936 and harbored Nazi sympathies, is restored to the throne. Britain is now a German client state, and the propaganda begins. The Black Book. In May 1940, the Nazis had prepared a document. The Sonderfahndungsliste GB, the Special Search List for Great Britain. Known as the Black Book, it contained 2,820 names. Intellectuals, writers, politicians, activists, Jews, all to be arrested immediately upon German occupation. Now, with Britain occupied, the Einsatzgruppen mobile SS units begin hunting them down. Among the names, Aldous Huxley, author of Brave New World No Coward, playwright H.G. Wells, novelist Sigmund Freud, psychoanalyst, though he had already fled to London and passed away in 1939, many are arrested. Some executed. Others sent to concentration camps. The intellectual and cultural heart of Britain is systematically destroyed. Resistance. But not all of Britain submits. In the countryside, resistance networks form. Former soldiers, factory workers, farmers. They sabotage German supply lines, assassinate collaborators, spread anti-Nazi propaganda. But without external support, they are isolated, and the reprisals are brutal. For every German soldier attacked, 10 British civilians are executed. The resistance fights on, but it is a slow, grinding war of attrition. The domino effect. The Soviet Union. With Britain defeated, Hitler now turns his full attention eastward. June 22, 1941. Operation Barbarossa. But this time, it's different. Germany doesn't have to worry about a Western front. All resources, all troops, all tanks, all aircraft can be concentrated on the Soviet Union. The invasion is devastating. Soviet forces, already reeling from Stalin's purges, are overwhelmed. By December 1941, German forces have taken Moscow. Stalin is captured attempting to flee to the Urals. He is executed publicly in Red Square. The Soviet Union collapses. The new order in Europe. By 1942, Hitler controls almost all of Europe. France, under the Vichy regime, is a willing collaborator. Britain is a puppet state. The Soviet Union is partitioned, with Germany taking the Western territories and Japan claiming the East. Millions are enslaved in labor camps. The Holocaust expands exponentially. With no Allied opposition, the Nazi extermination machine operates unchecked. By 1944, an estimated 15 million Jews, Roma, disabled people, and political dissidents have been systematically murdered. The American question. Across the Atlantic, the United States watches in horror, but America is divided. Isolationists, led by figures like Charles Lindbergh, argue that Europe's problems are not America's concern. We should stay out, Lindbergh says in a radio address. Let Europe sort itself out. But others, President Franklin D. Roosevelt among them, understand the danger. FDR delivers a fireside chat. If Britain falls, if the Soviet Union falls, we will be next. Hitler will not stop. He cannot stop. His ideology demands total domination. But the American public is war-weary, skeptical. And then, December 7, 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. In our timeline, this brought America into the war. But in this alternate world, with Britain and the Soviet Union already defeated, Japan hesitates. Why provoke America when Germany already controls Europe? The attack never happens. America remains neutral. Isolated. Alone. 1944. The Atomic Shadow. By 1944, both Germany and the United States have developed atomic weapons. Germany, using captured British research from the Tube Alloys Project and Soviet scientists, completes its bomb first. A test detonation in the occupied Soviet Union sends shockwaves, literal and figurative, across the world. Hitler now possesses the ultimate weapon. But so does America. A tense nuclear standoff begins. Neither side dares to strike first. The rise of American fascism. Within the United States, something dark is growing. Economic hardship from the Great Depression lingers. German propaganda, expertly crafted by Joseph Goebbels, floods American media. It blames Jews, blames communists, blames corrupt elites. And, disturbingly, it finds an audience. Charles Lindbergh forms the American Fascist Party. Its platform: isolationism, anti-Semitism, white supremacy, America first. In 1944, Lindbergh runs for president and wins. Hell on earth. By 1945, the world is unrecognizable. Europe is under Nazi control. The Soviet Union has been partitioned and enslaved. Britain is a shell of its former self. America has turned inward, its democracy replaced by fascist autocracy. Millions continue to perish in camps across Europe. Hitler stands on a podium in Berlin, arms raised in triumph. His vision, twisted, genocidal, monstrous, has been realized. For now. But it didn't happen. None of this happened, because in our timeline, Britain held. The RAF pilots, exhausted, outnumbered, outgunned, refused to break. Churchill refused to surrender. The British people endured the Blitz and emerged defiant. And that defiance changed everything. It gave hope to occupied Europe. It convinced America to eventually join the fight. It bought time for the Soviet Union to mobilize. Britain's survival was the hinge upon which the entire war turned. Closing. The fragility of history. Imagine standing on those white cliffs in Dover in July 1940, looking across 34 kilometers of water at an enemy that had conquered all of Europe. Knowing that your survival, and the survival of democracy itself, depended on a few hundred young pilots in outdated planes. That's how close we came, not to defeat, but to a world where freedom itself became extinct. The alternate timeline we've explored isn't fantasy. It's a reminder that history is fragile, that the decisions of a few can determine the fate of millions, that courage, real, terrified wood, human courage, can change the world. Hitler made mistakes. He withdrew from Britain too soon. He underestimated Soviet resilience. He declared war on America after Pearl Harbor. Each mistake compounded, and each one gave the Allies a chance. But if just one of those decisions had gone differently, if Britain had fallen in 1940, the world we live in today would not exist. There would be no United Nations, no Universal Declaration of Human Rights, no post-war prosperity, just darkness, and the slow, grinding horror of a world ruled by ideology built on hatred. We live in the world we do because Britain held, because ordinary people refused to give up, because when faced with the abyss, they chose to fight. That's the lesson. Not that we were destined to win, but that we chose to win. And that choice, made by millions of individuals across years of unimaginable suffering, saved the world. Never forget how fragile that victory was, and never take for granted the freedom it secured, because history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And the choices we make today will echo just as loudly into the future as the choices made in 1940. The question isn't whether we could face such darkness again. It's whether we'll recognize it and stand against it when it comes.